Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 7, Initiation, from some mystical adventures by G.R.S. Mead. Chapter 7. Initiation. What diverse thoughts and feelings are aroused by this word of many meanings. Few terms of deeper import occur in a mystical literature. Few words of more pregnant significance are uttered by those who speak on mystical themes. And yet, when we are asked what we mean precisely by this utterance, how difficult is it to answer with any precision? The word is used in so many senses that it seems almost impossible to discover its root meaning, and therewith the beginning of a right understanding of the living conception that ensouls the heart of the matter. It is therefore with much hesitation that I hazard a suggestion on so great a theme, with many apologies to those of my readers who may believe otherwise or be better informed if, perchance, I should unwittingly say anything unworthy of their holy things. And yet with a fair confidence that the gods like us to guess at what is beyond us and smile when we try to find out their secrets. Historically, the idea of initiation is always connected with the institution of secret rites. Rites performed apart, secrete, either in the adita or shrines of the temples, or in some place guarded from the eyes of the uninitiated, those who were outside the fane, profani. These secret rites were generally known as mysteries, sacred ceremonies and acts on which the initiated were to keep silence on penalty of death, and so called to close the mouth. Philologically, the term initiation is derived from the Latin initiatio, participation in the secret religious rites. In its root significance, however, initiatio is to be referred to the simple idea of entering into or entrance into, initium, ineo, hence beginning. I would suggest that initiare in its fundamental meaning is thus to start, and this is confirmed by a Mithriac ritual which uses the Greek to start, begin as its equivalent. How the term came to bear its later precise technical meaning we do not know, unless it connoted the entrance into, the only things that were really worth entering into. Even the Latins themselves had to confect a connection. Thus Cicero writes, "Nothing is better than these mysteries by which we are refined and softened from a rude and savage life to a love of our fellows, humanitatem, and by which we have been taught the initia, as they are called, that is to say, the true principles, principia initia, foundations or beginnings of life." We must therefore suppose that to Latin ears, amongst those who believed in the high moral worth of the mysteries, the meaning conveyed was that a man had entered the ranks of the humanists, had made a beginning of true philanthropy. The later Father Tertullian uses initiare as a synonym of to baptize, but it is not in Latin that we can hope to track out the true meaning of the idea. It is in Greek that we shall find the stronger traces. The most general term for initiation is thus, and to be initiated is, as Plutarch tells us, thus. The idea conveyed by these terms is that of perfecting, completing, accomplishing, operating. The initiated were thus the perfected, in Latin perfecti and adepti. Just as in Sanskrit they are the sadhus or sadhakas, from the root sad, to perfect. But the most general term in Sanskrit for initiation is diksha, meaning originally preparation or consecration for a religious rite, from diksh, meaning literally to wish to make oneself fit or competent, a desiderative form of the root daksh, to be competent, able, strong or powerful. In the Veda daksha and kratu, energy and intelligence are often found together as the two chief faculties of the mind. But enough of philology. It is now quite evident that the root idea of initiation is somehow connected with religious rites and with a man's perfectioning by their means, or making himself fit in order that he may accomplish such rites. Now, religious rites are in general rites whereby man is brought into contact with powers other than himself, with the invisibles. This has been always the general persuasion of mankind. But initiation has not only to do with religious rites in general, which are performed publicly for all to see, but with secret rites which are reserved for those only who have been prepared. Initiation, to mean anything, must always be connected with the idea of secrecy. Thus we have the rahasya or secret of the Upanishad schools and the disciplina secreti or arcani of Christian mystic tradition. So far, Our thoughts have been verging towards what is good and holy and pure, and keeping in the background the obverse of these things. The tragical history of mankind, however, is replete with records of secret rites of almost unimaginable foulness, and no period of the world's history is known when evil is not found coexisting with good. Indeed, it is almost not too bold a thing to say that the great passion of mankind is so conditioned that action and reaction are equal and opposite, so that whenever we remark in history an epoch of great spiritual activity, we find it accompanied with detestable practices, the very antipodes of the higher impulses. It is, however, not the purpose of this adventure to dwell on the dark side, but rather to seek some solution of the question. What do we who are lovers of wisdom today mean by initiation? Now, in the first place, it is very evident that those who believe in the brotherhood of man can seek initiation only into such mysteries as can perfect them in humanity or true philanthropy, as Cicero says. It matters not what allurements of gaining knowledge for the sake of knowledge may be held out to us. We must ever refuse entrance into such circles if they are not founded upon the purpose of right thinking and good doing. In brief, they are not ethically sound. But I believe most of us will go further than this and inquire more deeply into the matter. For we are already fortunate enough in having had made accessible to us the treasures of many of the initiatory laws of the past. That is to say, of the inner teachings of the great world religions which have been given by the providence of God for the spiritual education of mankind. Initiation thus begins to have for some of us a very deep significance. We have already learned, or we could have learned if we had taken any real trouble in the matter, what is the nature of the spiritual life and what are the boundary marks of the path that leads us from ignorance into Gnosis, from man to the divine. We have already learned, or at any rate we have had ample opportunity of learning if we would only take the trouble to read, what are held by the greatest benefactors of humanity to be the means of self-purification in preparing ourselves for the holy rite whereby we shall be received into the order of true manhood. We have already learned, if we have had attentive ears, that the mystery rites of human institution are at best but shadows of greater things, and that a man may never have been initiated into such rites and yet have passed on to truly higher things. And why is it that some of us are so persuaded? Because we are utterly confident that true initiation is a natural process. No man can give or withhold it. It is the fulfillment of a covenant that man has with his God, and none can say yea or nay but that God alone. It is very true that there are many rites that instruct us concerning the nature of this mystery, and that are designed to quicken our intuition of the nature of the consummation, whereby we shall be united with our greater self, and so reach unto true manhood. But these rites cannot of themselves perfect us. They may, if they are performed by fit and knowing hierophants and brethren, draw us towards the veil of the Holy of Holies, but that veil we must raise ourselves, and then only when the voice of the Beloved calls us from within. In other words, and briefly, initiation is a new start, a spiritual impulse given us. It is for us to seal it. There are still, I believe, holy rites performed on earth by true knowers of the mysteries, that is to say, by those who have themselves attained the grade of spiritual manhood, and perchance higher grades still, and who have authority in holy things conferred by nature and by nature's Lord. But even such rites, I would fain believe, are ancillary. They are the true liturgical cooperation of the servants of the Lord, but not the actual begetting or bringing to birth, the fiat or efficacia. Indeed, it is said that he who has been prepared and purified, or rather who has made himself ready and freed himself from the world illusion, so stripping himself naked of opinion, is not made Gnostic here on earth by those in body, but that, loosed from the trammels of the flesh, he passes to other inward rites of greater efficacy, where the mystery is consummated in the peace of perfect harmony, amid the unwearied liturgy of nature's purest elements, and with the wise cooperation of the all-knowing intelligences of mind, the great initiator. But seeing that this initiation, the true conscious beginning of the new birth, is a natural thing, we can hardly believe that it is dependent upon any instituted earthly rites. When the disciple is ready, it is said the master is ready, has indeed been always there, though unrecognized by the disciple. When the candidate is duly prepared by self-purification and the disciple of self-knowledge, the initiator is there, has indeed been always there, preparing the receptive nature for the implanting of the spiritual seed of Gnostic potency. But some will say, this is all so very vague and we have heard of it before. There is nothing secret about it. Initiation must be a definite thing, given in definite terms that could be distinctly stated were it permissible to speak of such matters. Let it, however, be remembered that here we are not speaking of the 1001 formal initiatory rites that, in greater or less degree, symbolize the natural fact which constitutes the conscious spiritual new birth. We are rather endeavoring to evaluate in some small measure the secret of the hidden rites, the spiritual mystery that no earthly or psychic ceremonies can reveal. These do but veil the mystery. It is the man himself who must raise the veil. For the mystery is that of self-revelation, and that self-revelation is operated by the inworking of the natural energy of his innate divinity. This energizing of his spiritual nature can manifest itself to his waking or dreaming consciousness in manifold modes. Every man viewed from the standpoint of process in space and time, every man considered as a procession of fate that gyrates in the circles of ever becoming and re-becoming, for the ages of the many lives of separated existence, which constitute the moments of the intrauterine life of the true man, has presumably in the storehouse of his greater memory picture on picture of initiatory rites through which he has passed, either while incarnate in some earth life or excarnate in afterlife. At the moment of his great conversion, which is the beginning of his knowing conversation with his greater self, these pictures can, it is permissible to believe, live again a life of new meaning, and things that had previously for the carnal mind been of the nature of shadows and shows, tantalizations and insufficiencies, nay, that not infrequently had led to corruption and debasement, become intelligible in the light of the new dawn of the purified life and mind. But the memory of such ancillary experiences, the bringing them through into the physical consciousness, is not by any means invariable. So I have heard, and so it seems most natural to conclude. On the other hand, the re-seeing of these and similar pictures may be the lot of many who are still without the mystery, and is by no means in itself to be taken as any proof of spiritual attainment. For the bringing of the pictures through to physical consciousness is dependent solely upon psychic susceptibility, which in itself has nothing to do with the development of the moral nature. The fact of spiritual initiation is rather, one may believe, conditioned by the ability to understand, interpret and evaluate such subjective phenomena and happenings. The true initiate is he who stands in the light of knowledge and who thus understands. This or that picture, this or that happening is of no importance to him. It matters not whether this or that appearance of himself proceeded or proceeds through this or that experience, or whether other processions moved or move through other appearances. What is of moment is meaning, and the intuition of meaning alone is the only knowledge that makes for wisdom. And this being so, the reminiscence of certain selected pictures, either of past or present experience, is a matter of no great moment. Seeing that the memory that is restored by this spiritual initiation is that of understanding in present consciousness, no matter in what direction this consciousness be turned. It is the faculty of appreciating the true value of action, of happenings. It is the correct reading of history and true use of logic. There are doubtless all kinds of what may be called minor initiations into knowledges of an infinite variety of psychic states, as there are initiations into every variety of physical knowledge, and perhaps no few of my readers may think that many of such knowledges are well worth the straining of every nerve to acquire. I, for my part, however, have ever been buoyed up with the hope that there is a more immediate path to spiritual Gnosis. And it is to the treading of that path alone, in order to reach and pass through the gate of the Gnosis, and so become that gate for others, a true Bab, that I believe a man should dare to consecrate his real will and give his whole being. This does not mean to say that we should foolishly think little of formal sciences and knowledges and arts, but only that it is difficult to avoid the persuasion that, if it were intended these should be acquired through temporal means by all who would attain to wisdom, then the process would be endless and hope of consummation would be indefinitely deferred. I would therefore rather believe that there is ever open for all men an immediate path between them and their God, and that is only in respect to how far any knowledge can be held to throw light on this path, that it can in any true sense be called initiatory. We may add science to science and knowledge to knowledge, but no process of addition of sciences or knowledges will ever equate with wisdom. And the understanding and gnosis of which I have been speaking is of the nature of wisdom. Wisdom is eternal and immediate. It is not logical, it is not historical or evolutional in the ordinary sense of these words. It does not interpret one plane by another plane. It spontaneously recognizes itself in all things. And it is this knowing contact with this wisdom, I believe, that constitutes the entrance into life, or the first great natural initiation. This does not mean to say that consciousness of this contact is continuous. The contact, it is true, remains, for it is the permanent transformation of the deepest nature in man. But the retaining of such transcendent consciousness in the impermanent natures of the mixture is as yet beyond the power of the newborn man-child. That power has to be gradually developed, and the growth in spirit, or the development of the power to retain the holy breath, or spiritual consciousness on earth, marks the stages of perfection, whereby the man-child grows into the stature of the heavenly man. And here I would break off, though there is much more that one might venture to suggest, for the subject opens out infinitely, as do all the fundamental concepts of the mystic way. I know that it is greatly daring to venture on the treatment of such high themes, and that one risks to be accused of presumption for so doing. But my sole object has been to suggest how wondrous a prospect lies before us, when we dare to contemplate the nature of the meaning of that word of power, initiation. The dim imagining of what may perchance be a minute portion of that meaning is, I confess it wholeheartedly, presumption. But as this glorious ideal is one of the fundamental presuppositions of the deeper life, as initiation is a word that occurs so frequently in mystical and pseudo-mystical literature, it is not entirely improper to say, I think it may be somewhat of this or that nature, basing ourselves on the highest thoughts and holiest feelings that have been awakened in our better selves by the study of the scriptures of the world. To me, initiation, in its highest spiritual meaning, denotes a transcendent reality. It must be the necessary and inevitable consummation of my present studies and struggles. There is no higher satisfaction that I can at present imagine, for it must, in its very nature, transcend all that I can imagine and desire and aspire to, otherwise it would be no consummation or fulfillment. It is to be the natural end of life in natural ignorance, and the equally natural beginning of life in natural gnosis. Its nature is to be immediate and mediate. It is not to be a progress through other planes simply, but a unitary realization of the meaning of action on all planes. Whatever is less than this, I would believe that it pertains to some form of initiation that still veils the reality of the real thing, and not to initiation itself. These veilings are doubtless frequently most beautiful and reveal far more than any individual's guesses can hope to reach, but they cannot really satisfy. And I believe that true initiation is satisfaction. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.